Afternoon, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed your break. We're just waiting for the rest of the participants to join us and some of our speakers for the afternoon session. So we'll just take a few minutes before we connect and go live. Thank you. Hi, Corney, and afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to our session. Corney, we can start while we wait for the rest of the colleagues to join us. At least we've got most of our panelists now for the afternoon session. We're just waiting for Zambia, but Zambia will join us as we progress with the panel. At least we've got Namibia. We have Namibia represented by Professor Singh. We've got Mozambique represented by Lorino. And then we'll have South Africa. I think South Africa is either Dr. Stolle, but Edward can confirm who's going to do the South African presentation. And then for Zambia, we've got Mr. Steyn, but if Mr. Steyn is taking time to join us, we do have his colleague Henry, who's already connected if he needs to take over for the Zambia presentation. I hope we all enjoyed our short break. Lunch time goes by so quickly. So we'll go straight into our afternoon session in terms of the role of cyber infrastructure in responding to COVID-19. Obviously, we want to see some practical experience. This session is really about practical experiences that is happening on the ground, what member states are doing on the ground using their different platforms, be it HPC platform or being the NREN platform. So we've asked member states, these member states, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, and Zambia, to share some practical experiences. You heard from our previous presenter, I think it was Mr. Adino, where he spoke about peer learning amongst countries exchanges. And this session is really about peer learning, learning from each other what member states are doing, and even those member states that are not presenting, we hope that you listen, but also try to engage with these member states to try to learn from what they are doing, and we can have some peer learning exchanges to share some experiences on the ground in terms of responding to COVID-19. As we can see that COVID-19 is, we've been directed both at regional, national level, global level, to redirect our policy responses to COVID-19 in the different areas that we are working on. So, Mr. Lourinho, if you are ready, we will start with the Mozambican experience. You're welcome to take the floor. And I'm sure your platform has been enabled in terms for you to share your screen if you have a presentation. So welcome, Mr. Lourinho. Mr. Lourinho is from Moronet, which is the Mozambican National Research and Education Network. So it's the Mozambican NREN. Welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Ellen, for giving us the opportunity to share what we've been doing in Mozambique in this meeting. So the title of the presentation will be sharing what Moronet has been doing in response to COVID, but also our initiatives on the HPC field. Our presentation will cover these 5 topics: a brief introduction, what we've been doing on the data communication, and also what we've been doing in the HPC system application services, and our experience of implementing e-learning system and applications during COVID-19, and a brief conclusion. As most participants might know, we're part of the global research and education network. We are the members of the UNTRED, and through UNTRED we are connected to GIAN. Through GIAN we are connected to the global research and education network. As we were saying, we were one of the countries that are part of the this community of NRENs in the southern, eastern and southern Africa, and we believe that there are other colleagues from other NRENs that are part of this session. About Moronet, we are a government-supported initiative. We are the founding members of the UbuntuNet, and we've been in operation in 5. And today, we have 166 academic and research institutions connected to our network. This is the current state of our infrastructure in terms of architecture, of the network architecture, and also of the connection. Today, we have 6.6 gigabit per second connected to the internet, and the internet is provided by WIOC, SICOM in partnership with Ubuntu Net Alliance, and also a capacity from Alliance. As we mentioned, we have 166 institutions connected to our network, of which 94 are from higher education, 40 research, 30 TVET, and we're testing with the 2 secondary schools to see if we'll be ready to extend our network to the secondary school level. And so far, we're covering TVET and higher education. And we have in Mozambique 53 higher education institutions, but we have 159 university campuses that belong to these 53 institutions. And our network is slowly progressing to cover all the institutions. As part of the infrastructure within Mozambique, we're part of the MOSIX, the Mozambique Internet Exchange Point. We are connected tomorrow to MOSIX, and through MOSIX, we exchange traffic nationally to local telecommunication service provider and the e-government entity. And this is important because during the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, the need of many and localized traffic that's generated from within the country, it's important, and we are using MOSIX and our participation to share that. Before COVID-19 pandemic, we had 100 megabit per second link connected to our MOSIX, and it was saturated. One of the activities that we did when we started responding to COVID in March 2020 was to increase the capacity of the link to MOSIX to 1 gig, and it can be from the MRTG graph that we have improved the link and also the flow of information between us and all the mobile provider. I will come back to this point when we are sharing our experience of universities and the researchers and the students from home using the mobile telecommunication operator. During COVID-19, we have increased increased the links. We have increased the links, capacity of the links. As intended, we have increased by 1 gigabit per second the connection to MOSIX, and we have increased the link to our data center by 6.6 gigabit per second. This is also important because our government allowed that the higher education institutions and the TVET and research could use the government data center to store their content during this period. We would like to share some of the results of activities that we conducted in 2017 that showed that of the application that was taking close to 6% of international capacity was Google. Because of this information, we engaged with Google to localize the Google Cache servers in Moranet in Mozambique. And we were successful in doing this, and we have improved the capacity performance of our link because we localized all the traffic in the country. We are also part of the African Internet Society, and through this, we are part of initiatives to improve the usage of the IP of the internet, particularly the IPv4 and IPv6 resource. And also, we are part of the initiative called MANAS, that is mutually agreed norms for routing security, because we are concerned with security as part of cyber infrastructure development in Mozambique. Now, going to HPC system application services. Our intention is to meet research demand for high performance processing and high speed, high storage capacity, support training events to promote the training personnel from the beneficiary institution, provide technical support to the beneficiary of high performance computing service, and ensure uninterruptible operation of high performance computing services. We also support climate science by allowing greater accuracy of weather forecasts, the prediction of major natural disaster, and the study of ocean behavior, study the development of more sustainable agricultural organization and food production process, supporting country security and defense force, for example, by developing complex encryption technology, locating and responding to cyber attacks effectively using forensic research and nuclear simulation. Here we're sharing the work conducted with support of from our colleagues from CHPC in South Africa during the installation of the Stampede HPC system in the government data center in Malwana, and we're taking advantage of the data center to solve the problem related to power and also capacity in terms of data communication, allowing smooth connection and communication using Moranet and access to science applications stored in our HPC system. We also had the session for training the trainers on HPC and Stampede in particular, and this training has also been conducted with support of our colleagues from CHPC in South Africa. These applications that we, models that we have installed in our HPC system in Mozambique for now is the coastal and regional ocean community model, the weather for research and forecasting model, the MathWorks for MATLAB, and also ELCOM, some of the applications that we have. Weather forecast research model is being installed and it's in operation, and so it's being used by our colleagues from the Meteorological Institute to forecast. We have 120 students from the school of the marine schools and coastal science running the application using crop models, installation of application for the prediction of the ocean phenomena. We also are working to install the CERN server. It's a work on progress, and we're not able to complete this year. Here we're sharing some of the results of the weather forecast model, and in particular the test using the Kenneth cyclone. As you might remember, our country was affected by cyclones. We have been using this model to try to improve the study and the modeling of the cyclone. Going now to e-learning system and application, we would like to share that in the context of the COVID preventive measure announced by our government, with view to minimize the spread of the disease, to close the higher education, all the schools, and the government instructed the education institution to continue the teaching and learning process using digital platforms. To address this, Moranet developed a system called the SIMECASIM that allowed the collection and the identification of data from members of national academic and research institution due to benefiting from the special package provided by the national mobile operators, including zero rating package offered to the members of our community. SIM allowed the establishment of the first national whitelist of national research and academic sites that benefit from the package provided by the mobile operators. This is the architecture, as we mentioned, it has been designed and developed within the country by the members of our TPC, but also from collaboration from the academia. As part of its implementation, a total of 289,000 data identification from academic members have been registered, and these were from 56 institutions. And so far, 33 students have been using this system and benefiting from the package offered by the mobile operators. These are the 3 mobile operators in Mozambique, and they worked with the government to set up special package. TMCell, for example, was charging 100 medicals to allow unlimited access to the traffic. Movitel was charging also 100 medical, and Vodacom was providing zero rating for sites only localized in the country. This allowed that student and lecturer continue the teaching and learning process working from home, not or from the campus, because the campus were closed, and it had a huge impact in allowing that our education institution continue the teaching process. We also worked with Zoom, and now we're concluding the testing of the localization of the Zoom instance in Mozambique in our government data center. This also will have impact because we learned that all from Zoom used by university, because Zoom was localized outside Mozambique, was being charged as international traffic, and they were not benefiting from the simultaneous system design as we initially provided. With this agreement with Zoom, we believe that will lower the cost of access by students and the lecturers, because the Zoom instance will be localized under the .mz domain and the in-Moranet infrastructure. We also worked with the e-government institution Mozambique running a government data center, and it made available 40 terabytes of storage capacity in the government data center to be used by education institution in order to contribute in lowering their costs, because most of them were charged by ISPs to store their content. And so far, close to 50% of this capacity has been storage used, and we still have other 50% to be used in the coming days. We also engaged with LCBA to see if we can have the access to LCBA resource open for all the members of the research and academic institution in Mozambique to these 24 fields of knowledge. And now we're in the process of opening this LCBA. They've agreed to open for a period of 4 months. It was supposed to be open last in October, but issues in terms of congregating the IP addresses, it will not be possible. We believe that we will be opening this now by December in the first quarter of next year. One of the last aspects that we'd like to share is the improvement of Moranet international capacity. We have launched a tender to increase Moranet international capacity and also to take advantage of the Angola cables connecting Africa and Brazil, and from Brazil to the United States through the arm lights so that we have an alternative connection to benefit from the capacity made available for the research and education community through arm light. We have agreement already with the Brazilian NRP and also with UbuntuNet, and we also support from the TENET in South Africa, so that when we close this bid, all this channel will be allowed our communication to increase the international capacity of Moranet by 10 gigabit per second. In short conclusion, we can say that Moranet has been playing a growing role as the infrastructure platform for the collaboration education institution in Mozambique. We are expanding Moranet to cover all the 230,000 students of higher education and close to 92,000 students of TVET. We believe that international cooperation and learning from experience from other NRENs is important, and our growth as NREN is through the MOUs and partnerships that we've been signing with sister NRENs. SIMECASIN is a system of great value for the entire national research and education communities, as it arose with the objective of reducing the cost of internet access for students and lecturers at home during the COVID-19 pandemic and using digital platform. Kasim is contributing for building of the first national-wide list of national academic research institutions. And this is important because we're using this list to negotiate other package with other CDNs in Mozambique in our process and efforts of localizing CDNs like Zoom and Google in our country. And this is our last slide, and this share during this meeting. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Lorena. Thanks very much for that presentation. Congratulations to Moronet, Mozambique, for the great progress that you are making. We remember a couple of years ago, you were just establishing the Moronet, and the progress you have made so far, it's really commendable to see the work that you are doing. And I think we are moving at a very fast pace in the region from where we started. With countries really establishing their infrastructures, especially cyber infrastructures. So I will thank you once more for your presentation. You will stay as a panel. Ask you just to disable your video, just to close your video, because we'll invite the next presenter who's going to present as part of the session, as part of peer learning, as part of sharing experiences. I saw Mr. Stein was already ready. So I'll call upon Mr. Stein from Zambia to take the floor and
From
please
Namibia.
share. Sorry?
From Namibia, not Zambia.
From Namibia. Sorry, Professor Singh. Sorry, Professor Singh. Sorry, Prof. Sorry, my apology. Sorry, my apology, Prof. So Mr. Stein will first have Namibia, and then after Namibia we'll have Zambia. Yeah. So I'll call upon Professor Singh from Namibia, who is replacing his colleague, Professor Peters. We know that Professor Singh and Professor Peters work very closely together. I was told by Prof. Singh that Professor Peters is traveling, so she couldn't join us, but we know that we always have the presence of both the professors for our annual meeting. So Professor Singh is not new to us. He's always with us. We were with him last year, the year before, in having these SADC meetings. So welcome, Prof. And please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Anilima. Can you see my presentation?
We can't see the presentation, Prof. We can see you, but we can't see the presentation.
Just a minute. Now?
We still can't see the presentation, Prof. But we can see you, Professor. It's just your presentation is still not showing.
I think now it's visible.
Yes, now we can see the presentation. If you can just put it on slideshow. Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Director of Ceremony, all the country coordinators and the experts. So on behalf of Professor Anisa Petra, she is traveling. I just received the message from her that there is no Wi-Fi connectivity. So she won't be able to attend this meeting right now. So I am presenting on behalf of her. So in my presentations, I will cover some initiative in Namibia regarding in the COVID-19 development. So in Namibia, some applications were developed like COVID-19 website and mobile applications, COVID-19 smart register application, COVID-19 contact tracing mobile application. And I also show some of related publications that published by Namibian scientists. Later on, we also planned one conference, and I also emphasize about the cyber infrastructure and applications and the development in Namibia. So in Namibia Institute of Science and Technology, faculty, staff, and some of the students develop websites related to the statistics, related to testing center, frequently asked questions, and other informations are available. Now I dashboard is moved to the another website here. This one is the something else. One of another applications, COVID-19 Smart Register applications developed by Namibian University of Namibia students. And here is faculty and a student demonstrating how smart applications works to the security persons to the main campus of University of Namibia. Another application also developed by the University of Namibia is University of Namibia successfully launched a mobile applications. Then the name is Num Cotrace, and that has the potential to become the key weapon in stopping the spread of COVID-19 outbreak through community-driven contact tracing. And this Num Cotrace is also available on the Android phones and is coming from soon on iOS phone also. These are the some publications I gathered from the some internet that some of scientists published the high quality publications related to the COVID-19. One of the publications is also related to the artificial intelligence and psychological support during COVID-19 outbreak based on the statistics available on that time. Last time we discussed about one of the conference based on named as the International Conference on Data Science, Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence. In brief, DSML AI 2020. Publication also we received the approval from ACM for publication for the conference proceedings in ACM Digital Library, but the conference has been postponed to August 2021 because the COVID-19 outbreak, and we can ask for the submission of good papers related to the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, so we have some developed infrastructure related to the high performance computing or supercomputing facility in Namibia. Many master and PhD students are also working on the supercomputer or high performance computing. As we know, in 2016 and later on, UNAMNUS received one supercomputer facility from CHPC, South Africa. And next this year, we are going to establish a high performance computing that HPC donated by Government of India. Last week, Indian High Commission, he is the Indian High Commission and his team, acting Vice Chancellor, visited that center for the pre-inspection. And center is expected to inaugurate by the president maybe in December sometime or in January. But in the center, what we did in the centers, this is the beauty of center that we also received the high performance computing. Here is the high performance computing. In this case, we gave the name of, here is the Param, P-A-R-M, Param Herb, H-A-R-U-B. Herb is the name of, in Namibian language, herb means it's cheetah, and cheetah, the speed of cheetah is fastest in animal. So the name we gave as a Param Herb. So this HPC name is the Param Herb HPC. So in this case, the HPC is based on the power edge. We know we are working on the edge intelligent, and the power edge also works on in artificial intelligence system. So now we have HPC in AI system. So this one is strengthen the application development of packages in the area of the smart and secure communications in various domains related to climatology, bioinformatics, health, and the transportation system. So the capacity of this one, total capacity, those are, we have one master node, one backup node, and four computing node, and the total capacity is 248 core plus one is GPU node somewhere here. So the total capacity is more 248 cores and plus GPU, and the total memory capacity is 968 gigabyte. And there is another storage system. The storage system is, I think, 228 terabyte for this system. So this one is the front view, of all the nodes, computing nodes, as well as the master nodes and the storage nodes, including the graphic nodes. That we already discussed, that high performance computing, artificial intelligence, supercomputing established we give the name as Center of Excellence IT. Total core is because we have 4 computing node. One is master node. Other is the backup node. And this one is the total memory available for this system. Backup storage is near about 224 terabyte. That I also want to share about this particular developed facilities, research facilities in the center. So now we are working for the security, and what I feel in the security, if we are working security experiment in the university for research purpose, for the experimental purpose, the present university policy and government policy will not allow to do anything in the network. So what we did, we especially requested to the university and the government. This is the security test bed. We have 4 servers, server 1, server 2. This is the Windows server, Linux server. This server is especially for Honeynode data analysis part. And this one is the network simulator. So that particular security test bed we will use in the security lab. We put the name is HAS Security Lab. So these 4 nodes are able to access via the security lab, and we can do anything. And the beauty of this particular security lab is this security lab is directly connected to the internet service provider. This particular structure, this particular infrastructure is not connected with the university network. Otherwise, if you connect in the university network will not allow to enter any nodes. University will not allow to do any security experiment in the network. So that's why we developed a security industry oriented experiment or research work, especially in the center. We are talking right now the virtual and online learning classes. So we have also the video conferencing. We have also developed a video conferencing facilities. In this one, this is IP video conferencing facilities. So for this one, we can take virtual classes, or we can ask our neighbor countries or from SADC experts or some other countries experts. So we can take the advantages using video conferencing facilities. Now what is the use right now for the CHPC? We receive the supercomputing facilities from CHPC South Africa, as well as we are going to develop new computing facilities in the country. And what we are doing, we are using for the master, PhD, and industry professional students, as well as for the honors students. Sorry. Some of the project already running. So one of my master student is working on designing a hybrid deep learning distributed denial of service attacks detection mechanism in software defined network. Some of the other 4 to 3 students also working in security based on the deep learning or the artificial intelligence. So right now 4 master students are working on the high performance computing that we received from the South Africa. Other also projected, also other students also busy and working with the same high performance computing, and they are busy to finalize their project right now. This is one of the snapshot that one of my students is working on the HPC that we received from CHPC South Africa. So this is HPC environment he created, and he developed some deep neural network algorithm, and this is the result for the accuracy for the experiment. So just I want to show that still we are working on CHPC received from South Africa. In UNAM, University of Namibia, mostly astrophysics in simulating globular cluster to predict the emission they are using, and these simulated to make informed decision of which global cluster to make data, and then use same cluster to analyze the data and confirm the prediction of 3 sigma significance. So another use is computational chemistry with ORCF for the application in larger molecule transition metal complexes. So that information I received one of our member, Mr. A.S. Limbo. He gave me the information about what he is using, and he is the administrator of this HPC in the University of Namibia. The challenge is always there. So still researchers are not buying into HPC technology, and research is mindset. And what we are facing, even though we have infrastructure, but still funding for the scholarship for the student, we are facing the problem. This is just for the information. I'm happy to say that our university, Namibia Institute of Science and Technology, received the prestigious award of UNESCO Chair in Smart and Secure Environment. And the domain concerned area are smart communications, big data infrastructure analytics, and the cyber security related to all the area related to our cyber infrastructure. And myself is the chair for that particular UNESCO chair. So thank you. If there are any questions, you can pause and you can ask later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Professor Singh. Thanks for that very informative update. Again, great progress made by Namibia. And also congratulations for being nominated as the chair for the UNESCO chair in big data. And this area is very congratulations. So we see already more collaborative work coming through. And we are happy that the region is really being positioned strategically by hosting these UNESCO chairs. And through these UNESCO chairs that are located within the region, it will just help to make our work much better in facilitating the regional agenda. So congratulations are sent out to you, but also congratulations to Namibia for being allocated the chair, the UNESCO chair on big data. And we hope that we will work very closely with the chair. We also congratulate you on your hub, the Param hub. We see that you say it's a cheetah. We know that South Africa's got Lingao. So we'll see more of these coming up in the region. So congratulations with that too, and congratulations with the center that's coming up. You did also mention last year the donation that was coming from India. So we're happy that now at least there's some progress on the ground with the center being set up. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but also the region is really being strategically positioned with all this exciting work that's happening at country level. The questions we will have after all the presenters. So for now, I'll just ask you, Prof, to close your video so that we can invite our presenter from Zambia, Mr. Steyn. Please take the floor. Also, congratulations to Mr. Steyn. He's also had some great progress done in Zambia, and we're always happy to be with him annually at our meeting. And I know he was recently promoted in country. Congratulations with your promotion and the great work you continually are doing at Zamrin. Welcome, Mr. Steyn. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anlin. And let me take this opportunity also to thank every member of our committee under SADC Cyber Infrastructure. But my apologies, I didn't attend the morning session. And yesterday I had problems. Today I had to rush to the Ministry of Higher Education. I think there was some talk there that needed my presence. So in the morning I missed out. However, my presentation will dwell on the use of e-learning platform during and post-COVID-19. And this is what has kept us busy. I did share with this also with the UbuntuNet Alliance, and I'd like to share with you for other members to see if this is applicable or you can learn from us and move forward. So in our quest during COVID-19, when it broke out in March, it brought in a lot of fears, and we did not know how we were going to continue with offering our learners with the content. And so we sat down as a team and looked at what would be the easiest and cost-effective platform that we could use to ensure that learners get content and they continue learning despite the pandemic as COVID-19. So we settled for MOODLE, and one of the things that we did, I think you'll see it during my presentation, I'll still be talking about, but we feel that MOODLE is open source, and it being open source, it means you can customize it to your own liking, and you can still continue offering lessons to learners with plugins like Big Blue Button. You can use MOODLE effectively as a virtual service. So this is the presentation outline.
Sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Stein. Sorry,
Yes.
Mr. W. Can I just ask you to put your presentation on, project it on slideshow? Just to project it on slideshow.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't project it. I thought I'd projected it.
No, the presentation was projected, but it was not on slideshow.
Oh, I see. Okay, I get you. I
Yeah.
get you. Okay. Are we together
Thank you.
now? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So this is the presentation outline. So the definitions, problems, solutions, MOODLE, and end of presentation. So I wanted first to make it known that whatever we are doing is related to ICTs. And also we are talking about ICT infrastructure that we can use to host and provide learning during and after COVID-19, because e-learning now will be an in thing, whether we like it or not. As long as content can be hosted by a learning management system, that becomes important. Then also we are looking at the role of ICT. So the part played by ICT or function of ICT in the delivery of education. And we're looking also at a data center. What is a data center, and why does a data center become important in the wake of COVID-19? So then we look at the problems. What are the problems that we have faced? Or what are the problems that those do not take heed to COVID-19 are going to face in the future? So we look at disruption of face-to-face or physical presence of facilitator and a learner in a classroom. There has been a disruption of face-to-face, and we have to look at how we are going to deal with this problem, because education is enjoyed when there's face-to-face. Yes, for adults, it will be more enjoyable when they can do it online, but for the children, face-to-face, it grooms them. It makes them to be people that know how to interact with others. So also looking at the cost of ICT infrastructure for provision of online and learning lessons. There's been a huge cost trying to shift from the face-to-face to online learning environments. So that cost has to be taken care of. We have to recognize that there's an e-learning that has come on now, and we have to prepare for it. And therefore, there's also a mindset change. There is what we call as the born before computers. Now, how do you get these lecturers to come now on the online learning environment to start offering lessons, to start offering content? Because most of the BBCs, they believe they can hold on to their material and use them in form of printed lecture notes, and they enjoy giving it that way. But with the learning management systems, or the online learning management system, is to take this material now and put it into three formats. One is as the print itself, the text, then I've got two, the audio, then three, the video. So our learners can take these formats of text, audio, and video. Priority is to recognize and accept paradigm shift. We have now to prioritize our budgets and accept that we will need to, or we have to go online or e-learning. Lucky and cost of internet connectivity. The cost of internet still continues to be a thorn for most education institutions. Then there's another problem that we cannot run away from. It's the end user or learner's equipment. Yes, you can provide this content, but how do learners now get onto getting this content? So there's an equipment that must be used. There are laptops, there are mobile phones, there are tablets, iPads. This is also a problem because I don't know in other countries, but speaking for Zambia, it's a huge cost. Not many learners can afford to have a smartphone. We're also talking about the problem of power. There's a deficit of power, and so we have to look at other sources of energy. So solutions to the problem that we sat down as a team, we looked at solution number one, create backup learning mechanisms. So from face-to-face, go to online or e-learning with virtual platforms. Online, but with virtual platforms. So we looked at those solutions that we can use. We have got MOODLE, which ourselves as Zambian, we believe in so much. Blackboard, this is a commercial. There's Google Class, the big blue button, there's Zoom, Microsoft Teams. All these are solutions that we can use during and after COVID-19. Building cost-effective data center to host online or e-learning content. You know, the text, the audio, and the videos, they will need to reside somewhere. So we need to have data centers that can have the cooling, good cooling. They have enough space because audios will take up a lot of your space, and also the videos. So virtual platform digitalization. We have to look at all this. We have to digitalize our materials. Constant capacity of capacitation of human capital. Remember, I talked about the BBC mindset. So try to capacitate the BBC so that they're able to upload, they're able to upload their text, the audios and videos on this learning management system. Financial allocations and investment to react to the new normal. We call it the new normal in Zambia because we have to ensure that now our way of financing the e-learning platform must change. Bulk procurement of internet capacity through collaborations and partnership, deployment of cost-effective technologies for connectivity for end users, brokering for bulk procurement of end user equipment. So what Zambian has done on this, the brokering of bulk procurement for end user equipment, is that we have brokered with Astria Learning for tablets. And the tablets have become, they are now cost-effective, affordable by Zambian standards. We know by Zambian standards, these tablets are affordable, and so students now can use these to connect to their learning platforms, and they can have either they can download or learn or watch their videos using these tablets. Use of alternative sources of energy is solar. We're talking about solar, and we are speaking big about solar energy. Now, for us who have settled for MOODLE for virtual and distance learning, and one would ask me, why are you talking about virtual and distance learning? The traditional way of offering learning to those people that would not be in a face-to-face classroom, the traditional way, was to print content or learning materials and dispatch them using either the post office or any courier means to get to the students. And the students would do all their assignments and courier them again to their lecturers. So now we are saying, with MOODLE, you don't need to courier. With MOODLE, you need to upload. The students now have to download and also do their courseworks and also take their exams. So we see that MOODLE provides educators, trainers, administrators, and learners with a single robust, yet a secure online courses to achieve learning goals. It also enables education to be accessed by many e-learning and provide continued learning during and post-COVID-19. Zambian has waived hosting fees for all its member institutions for 2020. Now, to get institutions to buy in, because this material, when it sits on our server, that is money that is consuming. But we said, during COVID-19, what can we do? So we waived all the hosting fees until 31st of December 2020. So we're hosting all the institutions that want to be hosted at no cost. The cost that they're incurring is the cost of setup and also the training. So we're offering training for facilitators or lecturers or teachers. So we facilitate this training at our own cost. It's a 3 days training that we offer so that they know exactly. Remember, we talked about capacitation of the BBC. So one of the ways of capacitating the BBCs is to train them on how to upload, on how to come up with the content, and on how also to shoot the videos and also compress those videos so their students can follow them. So far, it has been good because before COVID-19, we had only 3 institutions that we are hosting MOODLE. But now, as we are talking, we may close the year maybe at 25 or 30 if all goes well. But we now have got 24 institutions, which we take it as a plus, because during COVID-19, it was a big problem. People could not meet, and institutions were closed down. But during that period, we saw that there was an increase in the uptake of MOODLE, and students were able now to use MOODLE for learning. One of the things that I must mention to you, and which you may want to ask or to know, is that can MOODLE offer examinations? Yes, there's a facility in MOODLE and it's secure. What you need to do is to customize it, and you can have the quiz set for your students, and the quiz can have time to log in and to take them. And you can also set time when the quiz cannot be accessed. So for the examination, the final exams, yes, it also does shuffling of questions so that there's less cheating among students, because you question 1 and Lynn might not be my question 1, but the exam will be opened. And so we also take care of issues of load shedding in our country. So students that will be affected by load shedding, they need to call their lecturers and tell them that in our place there's load shedding, so this exam can be disabled for me. So they will not have access to that exam, and they'll tell them the times when they will not be load shedded. And also we are saying, okay, we may have this MOODLE, it sounds beautiful, it looks beautiful in our own eyes and perception and where the people are looking at it. We talked about the problem of equipment that should be used by students to access their content, to access their learning materials. But the students are not all in Lusaka. They are not, all these students are not in Livingstone. They are not on the Copper Belt. These students are dispersed in different areas. So to actualize the MOODLE, what we have done is to deploy EduROM, to ensure that EduROM is in all the 10 provinces of Zambia, so that those students that come from different provinces, in the province where they are able to access their learning materials using EduROM. Because there's a cost of internet that we have seen. We talked about internet being expensive. But if we deploy EduROM, it means students will have, the only cost is the cost to travel to that institution when they're in that province. So we have deployed EduROM in 16 institutions across the country to ensure that students do not give excuses on data bundles. Because for us, like Mornet, they have negotiated with the mobile service providers. We did not negotiate. We believed in our own solutions, that is EduROM. So we have deployed EduROM in 16 institutions across the country. And this marks the end of our presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Thanks for that presentation and for sharing those experiences. And again, great progress that's been made in Zambia. For me, what was quite interesting to see is the bulk procurement. And I think what COVID-19 has done, it has forced us to work together as different sectors and different entities for cost-saving measures. And I think quite interesting to see the innovative ways of now procuring ICT services in order to lower the costs, but also the issue of alternative energy. quite important because we know our region, many countries are still struggling with access to sustainable energy. So quite important that we need to factor in the issues of alternative energies. But I think the whole issue of digitization, it's again being put in the forefront to ensure that we digitize everything that we do, because that's the new normal, as you said, that we are currently faced with, but that will be with us for many years to come. And I think it's more or less accelerated the plight of fourth industrial revolution and the uptake of 4IR. It's really accelerated that. So very rich presentations from all the presenters from Namibia, from Zambia, from Mozambique. South Africa will not give a presentation because this morning in Dr. Stolle's presentation, he did also highlight what is being done at national level as he was presenting the regional update. So we still have him as a panel member. So we've got our 4 panelists. To then we open up the floor. Corneille will open up the floor so you can raise your hands. But we had 2 questions already posted on our question box. The first question came from Brian from CSR. I think it was posed to Namibia. And the question was, who is administering the Param Hub? The Param Hub. So Prof. Singh will respond. And then we had another question from Mr. Rakate, Edward, South Africa, who asked the question about have you done, I guess this was for Namibia, have you done engagement workshops to demonstrate the cyber infrastructure capabilities and its impact? So for now, we have those that are posted. Prof. Singh, you can take the floor, and then the rest of our participants, please do raise your hand so that we can recognize you to give you the floor. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So the first question regarding the administration of the HPC in Center of Excellence IT. So I want to just share information that our 6 faculty were trained in India for 6 months. And one of the faculty is specially trained for the HPC administration. So he will manage all the things. And he was also worked in our DIST department since long time. Now he is our faculty. So he is the administrator under the guidance of the Indian Center of Advanced Computing in India. Regarding second questions about the workshop, of course, we have 2 online workshops, face-to-face workshop under this project, and 2 workshops for the scientists in India. So what we can do when we plan the online workshop, then I will also discuss with Anilini. Then we can share the link for the SADC partner for domain knowledge or administration. So what type of training we are expecting? So the 2 training we are expecting that we asked to the Indian experts that 40% training should be the administration part and the 60% is the domain expert. Because the purpose of this particular Param Hub supercomputing HPC facilities is we want to create some research capabilities in our region. Thank you. If still there is your questions, then I can explain.
I think there was also a question from the question of the, I think you did answer the question of who's managing the Param Hub, who's administering, sorry, the Param Hub. I think you responded to that.
Yeah, our one of the faculty, he trained in 6 months, he got training in India.
Okay, thank you. And then there was also a question from Dr. Stolle to Mr. Steyn. I think the question is around, or maybe Dr. Stolle is on the floor. Please take to the floor and answer your question. Thanks.
Anlin, I've seen the question from Dr. Stolle. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. He's asking if we are rolling out our EduRoam to other places other than education institutions. No, we are not doing that. We are only confined to education and research institutions perimeter. So where learning takes place, that is where we end. However, our plans are that, and these have been approved by the board, is that we're going to roll EduRoam into international airports, so that when Dr. Stolle travels to Zambia, flies to Zambia, at the airport, he is able to log to EduRoam and start using that facility. And we're also taking it to selected shopping malls, big shopping malls, so that when students and the researchers, academicians are doing their shopping, they're also able to connect to internet and also do their work wherever they are. And some selected also bus terminus where we also roll EduRoam. This is our plan, and this has been approved by the board. Thank you very much, Dr. Stolle.
If I may just follow up, Chair, I think this is very important and insider. These are some of the things that we might have to look at to extend the reach of EduRoam, and I'm glad that Professor Chimani is also here, that when we are looking at the entrance within SADC, this is something that we should be looking at because we did a study here in South Africa where we were basically geolocating the students when they are at home, when they are not at universities. And this was emanating from this lockdown situation. And what we managed to see was that there is coverage of connectivity across the country. Obviously, that coverage is mainly mobile connectivity. And you know, if you are going to sit for, let's say, 8 hours and having like this type of video calls, doing any learning, that is not sustainable using mobile data. And one of the things why we think the EduRoam, if we look at the coverage of EduRoam beyond the institutions and in areas which are closer to the professors and the students when they are not at campus, it might be very helpful. I think the other part that we're also looking at, and I'm not sure if this applies to all SADC countries. In South Africa now we are looking at this additional spectrum that is going to be opened for operators. And this is something that we need to look at on how this spectrum can be opened, but still we utilizing part of it to ensure that we can be able to pass this through to the education sector. The keynote, opening keynote yesterday by Dr. Ngaba highlighted to that, which is some proposal that we are putting on the table for the South African government to take into consideration so that we can expand the reach of the entrance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Stolle. We've got another question from Namibia, from Wilhelmina. I'm just going to summarize the question. It's quite a long question, but I think the key that I pick up there is that, and this is for all panel members, what strategies were applied to determine the technology and end user acquisition and end user retention. So what strategies were applied to determine the technology and end user acquisition and user retention? I think that's posed to all panel members just to respond to the question that was posed. Thank you. Any one of the panelists can take the floor. Thank you.
Yes, I can try to respond to this question. What we've been doing since we started working as MOODLE is to, in terms of determine the technology is to conduct comparative studies from the advanced entrants within Africa and other parts of the world, in particular Brazil, Portugal, Italy, the Netherlands, that are having direct contribution. And in our region, in particular, from Sandra and Tenet in South Africa, Kenneth in Kenya, and after the comparative study of the technology, look to the environment, what's available within our telecom, also the project within the government, how those could be aligned with the existing technologies. So this is the approach, and from that we have been using diversified technologies. On the HPC side, we are part of the SKA project, and we've been learning from CHPC again, and they've been advising us on the best technology that we've been using so far, because we're in the initial steps of the learning curve. In terms of the retention of the user, we've been targeting the members of the research and academic community, and we're trying to identify application services that are of higher demand by these communities and deploy those services, but also we've been conducting engagement workshops, target special groups in order to promote special services that we have been delivering so far. We have been getting good results, so available to learn from the experience of other entrants and other high performance computing initiatives in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorena. Please, other panelists, welcome to take the floor.
Thank you very much. And in our case, answering this question, what strategies we apply to determine the technology? So when we're talking about MOODLE, we're talking about user friendliness. How is it? Is it easy to deploy? Is it easy to customize? Is it, and the cost also, looking at the cost. So MOODLE is an open source. There's no cost. You can download it and you can customize to your own likings. That was one strategy. It's free, it's user-friendly. It can also accommodate plugins like Big Blue Button. So Big Blue Button can be used as we are using Zoom. So it can take multiple connections at the same time. So you need to have just the storage space to take on those videos. So we looked at Big Blue Button as another open source, which we can use in conjunction with our MOODLE. In terms of acquisition and user retention, we have had big universities that have used MOODLE. An example is the University of Zambia and other private universities that have used MOODLE. So far, they have conducted their examinations without any incidents of cheating by students. And the fact that MOODLE can shuffle the questions, and also if the exam is 3 hours, it means 3 hours. Those that not have finished the exams in 3 hours, it locks them out. So we have seen that most institutions, big universities, are using MOODLE, and we have gone flat out to market MOODLE. And because we have segmented our member institutions, those that are for College of Education, those are trades training institutes, those that are coming from the nursing colleges, the universities, the schools, we have segmented. So we are able to reach out to them and explain to them about MOODLE. So this is a retention strategy, and also the waiver that we gave, we saw that we can retain. Going into 2021, we may modify on our waiver. Maybe we may ask for a small amount of money, which will ensure that we still retain these member institutions, continue using MOODLE. And also the deployment of EduRoam. I like the way Dr. Stolen talked about it. And exactly that's the approach that we have. We have to think EduRoam as a means. And also, since we have brokered the tablets for students, we will see that students can go to any institution as long as they are able to mask and are able also to maintain social distancing and hand sanitizing, because each one we have seen that the hand sanitizer, they come in different packaging. So they can afford the smaller ones, and they will go into any institution and sit anywhere, because all the campuses will be flooded with EduRoam. So the internet is there using the Wi-Fi technology. Thank you very much.
Chair, if I can come in on your question, which is a bit tricky. And in this case, I think it put us between a rock and a hard place, because here we need to look at how do we democratize content to a point where we're looking at for people who might not have functions that are there on a smartphone. And the reason I'm saying it's putting us between a rock and a hard place is that if you look at the availability of the phones that can be able to have functions like smartphones at the moment and at a really low cost, I think my analysis is that they are now pervasive and available throughout. But well, the question still remains important that for those people who don't have those functionalities, how do you deliver content? I think it's an issue where we don't have graphical user interfaces. Are we going to go into applications that can be accessed at command prompt? This, I would say, the developers have to have a look at it and be able to provide those options. But the other part, which it always remains a challenge, is that for one to be able to have any meaningful learning and participation online, either online e-commerce or education, you need to have at least a quality connectivity of 3G minimum and above. And also at the same time, you need to have a decent device. And in South Africa, what we looked at when we looked at this whole issue of education, these two issues came. And one of the things was to look at how do we make sure that we have got we look at the issue of connectivity, but also we look at the issue of device. And the devices, for an example, in South Africa, we have got the National Student Fund, identify the students who are in areas where they have got the need. And there was a program to buy equipment for them. And in this case, the whole thing of bulk buying became important so that you can drive down the cost. So that was one which was like an immediate solution that can be applied. But we also had a group of ICT sector where the executives of the ICT companies in the country met and they participated in this forum without expecting any payment or any procurement from government. And they came up with some solutions. There is a comprehensive report in there. But in that report, one of the things that came out is the strategy in us reutilizing the equipments, like it could be your tablets or the laptops or computers that can be able to be repurposed, be given to the needy. And if you look at that concept, it really falls into what we call the HPC ecosystem within SADC, but that being at equipment level. So I think those are some of the things that we have to look at on your team to say, we need to really move forward and for people to have a meaningful access to either commercial e-commerce or education, a decent connectivity and a decent equipment is required, a decent device. And whilst we are still going in that direction, we still need to accommodate them whenever we do any development so that at least an entry-level device should be able to access the content. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stolle, and thanks for the very enriching panel discussion. I think the issue of devices is quite key, and it takes us back to the to Mr. Stein's presentation about bulk procurement. How do we devise frameworks around bulk procurement and ensuring that we get the relevant equipment to service the user needs. But also what was mentioned, I think it was in Professor Olafir's presentation, was the issue of content in the morning session. I think content quite critical. That how do we create and develop our own content that we put on these e-learning platforms? And I think that's something also we shouldn't lose sight of in terms of developing our own content. Are there any other comments or questions for this session?
Just to add on, Anlene, during UbuntuNet Alliance, there was a mention from Uganda, because I'm trying to follow up on Dr. Stolle's contribution on the device, end user device, and if they are not smartphones, but they are mobile phones. So Uganda, I understand, I think Lorraine is here, which I meant to add on if I missed that point. I think because MOODLE, you can plug in other apps. So Uganda, I think, has gone further than that to add on an app for mobile phones. So we will learn also from Uganda what they've done to accommodate mobile phones to have access to MOODLE. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Zen. I think it's all about learning from each other and sharing these peer learning experiences. So I think with that comments and inputs, thanks to everybody, thanks to all our presenters. Again, I will give you a round of applause on behalf of everybody, all the participants. And please do send all your presentations to me, to myself, Mr. Edward Rakati, and Mandri, so that we can consolidate all the presentations, so that we make sure by the end of the conference tomorrow, we post the presentations online for access of the presentations. I did indicate before lunch, just before we went for lunch, that we were supposed to have the presentation by the University of Transformation. But for now, let us go straight and take the presentation from Dr. Mary Jane, who's from the South African Weather Service. She's the project coordinator and project leader on one of the first projects that we managed to successfully put together as this under the SADC Cyber Infrastructure Initiative. And that project is focusing on climate and weather and climate. So Dr. Mary Jane, the floor is yours to please give us an update and the exciting progress and impact that you guys have been able to achieve in such a short space of time. Thank you. Please unmute your mic. Please unmute. Unmute your mic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I noticed I was talking to myself. Sorry.
Well, welcome and please put your slides on slideshow. Thank you. Welcome, Dr. Mary Jane.
Okay, thanks, Annelien. Can you see them now in slideshow?
Yes, we can see them. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Great. So colleagues, thanks for giving me this opportunity to share with you progress we've made in this project. So just in case you need some convincing that weather and climate is important, you know that the weather extremes can impact the society, and they can also impact on the economy. And we've seen what happened with Idai here in South Africa. We also had some severe floods in April last year that killed over 70 people. So we can try and reduce the impact associated with these events by using early warnings and these rely on weather and climate models. For us to be able to run these models and use high resolution, we need HPC systems. And we know that research on this area of numerical modeling in general is very limited on the continent. And that is because we've got limited computational resources. And the work that well, the people that were talking just now on the infrastructure and the HPC systems that have been deployed are making it possible for us to start contributing in doing some research on numerical modeling. We started talking about this project from around 2017, and in 2018 we did a situational analysis study where we just wanted to find out what's going on in the region, and we found there was indeed a necessity that we do something that will also assist with human capital development. In terms of funding, we were able to get funding through the Climate Research for Development Fellowship, and this was awarded in June of 2019. And we are seeing this project as a pilot because we are not including all SADC countries. And this pilot includes Botswana, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Tanzania, as well as Zambia. And we are collaborating with NASA, the UK Met Office, as well as the University of Reading. So through the funding we got through CR4D, as well as some of the money we received from the Department of Science and Innovation, the South African DSI, we've been able to run 3 successful workshops, and these we ran last year. We had the first one where we had the HPC specialists sitting with meteorologists from different med services implementing WRF on their HPC systems. And then during the CHPC national meeting in 2019, we then had 2 workshops. One, it was kind of sort of a report back where we had meteorologists presenting on the heavy rainfall events that they've been able to make simulations for. And then we also had another workshop that focused on applications. And by applications, I mean the development of products for different sectors like agriculture, the water sector, as well as for disaster risk reduction. So in terms of our approach, what we did with our pilot was we actually worked with different countries so that they tried to ask different research questions. And in South Africa, we're asking questions around the resolution. What is the impact on when you simulate a heavy rainfall event? What happens when you change resolution? And with Namibia, we also focused on resolution, but we also tested switching on and switching off the convection scheme. So the convection scheme is the one that will be responsible for generating rainfall, especially when you are using low resolution. And then Mozambique and Tanzania were testing the sensitivity to different convection schemes. So how well do different convection schemes simulate heavy rainfall events over Mozambique as well as over Tanzania? While for Zambia, we focused on different boundary layer schemes. So we're asking questions around how does simulating a heavy rainfall event over Zambia change when you use different convection schemes. And with Botswana, we looked at different microphysics schemes. So we have made some progress. So the aim was to publish papers on, that would focus on each of the countries. So with the Botswana one, as I mentioned, we're focusing on cloud microphysics. We submitted a paper to the African Academy of Sciences Open Research. This was one of the first paper we submitted because we submitted it in April. And there were some nice results that came out of it. First of all, what I'm showing here is the heavy rainfall event that we're focusing on. So this was February 2017 when we had tropical cyclone Dineo. So in the end, so what we're looking at was ex-tropical cyclone Dineo because it resulted in heavy rainfall over Botswana. So if you were to look just at the one row, so these are different days. And when you look at these, the first one where you see dots, those are ground observations. And the other one is the reanalysis. The other 2 GPM and TAMSAT are actually satellite estimates. And we consider all these as observations, and you can see how different they are. And this is a problem we have as a continent, that if you are to say, I'm running my model, what should you target? But in the case of Botswana, we're lucky that there were ground observations. So we knew basically what we needed to target. So the status of the paper now, you can see the 2 question marks. So the AAS runs an open review process. So the paper has been they say accepted with reservations, and that just means that it requires some revisions. So we will be revising this paper and resubmitting it to the AAS Open Research. With Namibia, we focused on the effect of multi-nesting. So that is when you are nesting, you have a model that uses very low resolution, and then you increase the resolution a little bit, and then you increase it again. And you can also go from the very low resolution and increase the resolution too much. And what we expected was to get very big differences when we followed that process, but actually we didn't find huge differences. The main finding from the paper was that we need to switch off convection schemes especially the one that we were using here, which was the new TIDGE scheme. It's not scale dependent, and therefore, as you are using it, when you use low resolution, you're using a lot of computational resources. So you want to make sure you benefit from that. So this is so far the paper that I can say in terms of the publication. It is in the final stages because it's been published. So it's out there for people to read. So in the case of Zambia, we submitted a paper to climate, as I said, so this one was focusing on a raging high pressure system, and then that moisture coming from the Indian Ocean coupled with the topography resulted in some heavy rainfall event. And we're comparing different convection schemes. So we submitted this paper to the climate journal. So it came back with major revisions. We were not able to submit all the revisions in time, but then we've been given a new link to do the revisions and resubmit. And we are hoping to resubmit this paper before the end of this week. And with Mozambique, so the papers for Mozambique and Tanzania have not yet been submitted, but you can see there's work going on. So with Mozambique, we are focusing on tropical cyclone Idai, and we are looking at different convection schemes. We can already see by just looking at the results that we've got some nice conclusions out of that. So we can see that scale-aware schemes stimulate less rainfall. So they can see that now the model is running with higher resolution. So we need to rely less on these convection schemes. The model should be able to resolve the convection itself. So there are some nice research findings that we are really getting. And with Tanzania, so the paper of Tanzania paper is actually more it's in a more advanced stage than the Mozambique one. But we are hoping we will be submitting these. We hope soon. I mean, it will depend on how much time we have to really be able to conclude these soon. So for South Africa, as far as modeling papers are concerned, there are a few that we've been working on. There is one paper that has been accepted with the South African Journal of Science. So it's looking at the unified model as well as ECMWF models, how they performed when we had the KZN flood that I mentioned, as well as when we had the Idai tropical cyclone. We have another paper that's looking at the unified model, how it performed when there was a tornado event over Gauteng. And this paper was led by one of the interns at SOS. And then we have another paper under review with the South African Journal of Science as well. It's comparing WRF, Cosmo, and So these are different models that our survey that we conducted in 2018 showed. These are models that are being used in the region. And we had another paper submitted to the Climate Journal, and this one was rejected. So it's kind of, I was wondering if I should share this one or not, but I mean, it's a process that we should all be aware of, that when you write a paper and you submit, it's not that it's automatic that it will be submitted. So it was led by one of our young scientists, and we've convinced him that he should work on something. Well, he should work on improving it, and so that we can submit it elsewhere. So in terms of the lessons learned, so for all the countries, we found that we need more ground observations, because when we say we are modeling, what are we modeling? So I think those of you that have got some voice to encourage the policymakers to put some money forward, so that as a continent we have more ground observations, you can assist with that. And I think what we did well, what kept us talking, was the fact that we decided that we were going to publish papers. And so, this writing of papers just kept us engaged, because we were engaged with all the countries, well, even though most of us are working from home. So what we also found was that the scientists at the meteorological services are generally multi-headed. So you find that the same person that's doing the modeling is the same person that's responsible for the ground observations. So they have very limited time to do research. So going forward, we think that we should be working more with universities. So the involvement of universities in this case has been universities that are hosting HPC systems. So I think we need the involvement of universities now when it comes to doing the actual weather and climate, like where you say now you've got weather and climate specialists in universities in different countries. We also would need, longer term funding, because with postgraduate students, especially when you look at PhDs, they take, a minimum of 3 years. So, when you get funding, in the case of CR4D, initially it was nine months, and then it got extended. So we've got until the end of December actually to finish all the activities. So it will be important, I think, going forward that we get funding, more long-term funding where we can be able to support postgraduate students. There's still more to be done. We were learning as we were proceeding. We still need to do more so that we can understand how models work. We need to do more on post-processing. These data analysis, we are analyzing data that is 4-dimensional. So it's longitude, latitude, altitude, as well as time. So these, you don't just get anybody to start analyzing. And then there's also more that needs to be done as far as publications are concerned. We found with most of the countries, with Zambia, we found our paper was I think it was the second one we saw, unless if there are others that are out there that we are not aware of. There was one that was on WRF, published by the Japanese. With Botswana, there was a paper on NWP using global models that were run in Europe and in the US. So we think ours might be the first that uses models run locally. With Namibia, the paper on modeling that focused on Namibia that we were able to see focused on climate change projections, which was done at UCT. So we think ours may also be the first one that focuses on NWP. Tanzania, I think Mozambique and South Africa do have a few papers in the area. So for these ones, it wasn't really the first papers to come out. But I mean, that being said, it says there's a lot that we still need to do so that we can increase on research output. So going forward, next year we are planning a training workshop for February 2021. So we have a meeting later this week with a few people to decide what the training is going to focus on. We are continuing to seek more funding so that we can reach more people. And we think of this project as really the initial steps to get us to a point where we can have a pool of people that can assist going forward with the development of our own homegrown models. So the way these models behave, especially when you look at subgrid processes, so these are processes where you kind of consider the statistics. So the model is not able to resolve explicitly. So the models behave differently in different parts of the world. So we want to be able to have a voice as Africans when it comes to how the models behave. And then I will conclude by thanking the Department of Science and Innovation for their funding. So with these papers, as we are publishing them, for some journals we have to pay. So it's the funding from DSI that's assisting us with this. The CHPC is the one that's also assisting. It's the one that is actually running the process to pay for these. We included some funding to buy some storage. So Brian Johnson and as well as Edward are assisting us to get some storage for all the sites, excluding South Africa, to increase the storage in those and in the different sites. And then we are also grateful to the meteorological services that have assisted. They've shared their data. We've worked back and forth with different meteorologists in these different countries, sharing scripts, sharing data back and forth, giving each other different responsibilities when writing the papers. So it has been great. And obviously we are also grateful for the assistance that we've received from HPC specialists from all the HPC hosts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mary Jane, and thanks a lot for a great presentation and update. Maybe as part of, I'll kickstart the questions. but we'll open up the floor now for questions. And Corneille, if you can please enable the participants to raise their hands so that we can pose a short few questions to Dr. Mary Jane, being mindful also of our time for our program, because we still have one more presentation and other items to take care of. Maybe let me start, Mary Jane, again, just to commend you and the team, all the team leaders from the 6 countries for the great work. We're very proud of this project because this is one of the projects that is profiling the status of the region in the area of cyber infrastructure. And I think the fact that papers are now being published in international journals, it's a great milestone because it continues profiles the region, that many people might not be aware of what's happening in the region or in Africa for that matter. I think one of my questions is, yes, we have these papers that we have published and generated some knowledge through scientific investigations. The important thing, or for me, the question I would like to know, how then do we, and not only for you, but to all the participating countries in the project, but maybe you can respond because you are the only presenter. How do we take that knowledge that was generated and that scientific investigations through the publications, but turning that into informing some policy decisions for policymakers in government, at institutions such as SADC, which is a multilateral institution, so that we know what preventative mechanisms to put in place or how to better respond to future disasters that we have. So I think that the key question is that how do we convert that, or how do we translate that into policy for a layman that is making policy decisions, for them to use that to make informed policy, public policy decisions. And I think maybe one of the other things I would like to request the project to do is to maybe do some policy briefs and how we can publish some of those policy briefs, maybe even on the SADC website, where we can share with the greater region in the form of policy briefs. Yeah. So that's the question for you. Maybe note it, and let's see if there are other questions, and then you can just take them in a bulk instead of taking them one by one. Are there any other questions from the floor? Okay, while we're waiting for other questions, you can respond.
Thanks, Annelien, for that good question. I think with research results, there are different levels where they can be applied. So first, I will speak to the relevance of our results as we found them. So these would be more suitable for somebody who works as a forecaster and they need to set up a numerical weather prediction model so that they can produce forecasts. So what we are saying here is these would be the best configurations to use as we are testing different schemes. These are the schemes that you can use. As far as policy is concerned, I did mention the area, and that is the problem that is associated with a lack of ground observation. So we know if you are to say what radar systems are there in the continent, South Africa has 14 radars. But when we did our situational analysis, I think there was mentioned that I think Madagascar was going to work on one. I know there's some work ongoing with the UK Met Office to try and revive the weather radars in Mozambique. But in general, we struggle. You run a model, but what is the target that you want to reach if you don't have any ground observations? So the message that can go out to the policymakers in relation to the work that has happened now from the actual research and the papers that have come out, it's really to say we need more ground observations so that we can know what weather it is we are trying to simulate for Africa. We cannot improve models if we don't have any observations to compare against or to calibrate even our satellite estimates. I showed you even the satellite estimations. The rainfall there looks very different. You look at TAMSAT, you look at GPM, they are all supposed to think of them as observations, but they are different. And so I think the other issues with that that would be relevant to policymakers is then just, areas that speak to human capital development. As I said, there is more that needs to be done, but this is probably something you can say is common. If you look at a number of disciplines, you need people to be able to analyze these big data sets. So we found that there are some that are more independent, but in general, people needed quite a bit of help just to analyze the data itself. I hope that answers you.
No, you've answered it very well. Thank you. You've answered it very well. And these are the type of things we want to highlight when we report to the ministers. Because remember, when we report to the ministers, we can't report in scientific language. We need to report in policy language. So it's important that we show them the scientific investigations, but then in form of the decisions they need to take, we really put it to them in language they understand. As politicians to take the policy decisions. I will ask, I think it's Machifana, I hope I've pronounced his surname correctly. You can take the floor and ask your question to Dr. Mary Jane, but Machifana has asked the question in the question box, but please do take the floor. We can ask Cornelia to enable you to speak. Please take the floor.
Okay, thank you. I've been enabled. Hi, Mary Jane. It's Tulone. Yes, I just wanted to commend you on the project and how much progress you have made so far. Yeah, because I remember when I was in 2017, you were still putting it together, but yeah, you really made very good progress. And yeah, so my question is just based on the slide that you had on the parameterization. So I was wondering, is that parameterizations, are they the drivers of the rainfall in the regions that you were focusing on, or it's just like what that part of the region with regard to collaboration, that's what you just decided to work on?
Thanks, Tulane. So I mean, with the parameterizations, you would know that they whether or not you're relying on them depends on the resolution that you are using. With the convection schemes, you know that as you are decreasing the resolution, you get to a point where you need to switch them off. So all the models, so if let's say maybe you are using a grid length of 50 kilometers, most of the rainfall will be a byproduct of the cumulus schemes. But if you are using a model that uses a grid length of 3 kilometers, there is debate on whether or not you should switch off the cumulus schemes. So I think as far as the parameterization schemes are concerned, you can actually test them just about anywhere. So the way we did it was just, we wanted different people to answer different questions. So we didn't want everybody looking at cumulus schemes. So in this way, then, you get people understanding different aspects of the models. You've got the cumulus schemes that will give you rainfall at very low resolution. You've got your microphysics schemes that will give you rainfall when you start resolving your convection. You've got your turbulence, your boundary layer schemes that are responsible for your mixing. So the idea was to ask different questions, and we know the questions, I mean, we could have asked them just about anywhere. So it was just getting different research questions for different countries.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Annelien, are you talking? You are muted.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm saying in the chat, sorry. I keep on forgetting to unmute. In the chat, there's a comment/question, but it's more of a comment from Dr. Stolle in terms of the project that he has posted on the chat section. Yeah, but I think it's more of a comment. Yeah. Let's take Wilhelmina from Namibia. You can take the floor. Thank you.
Hi, Mary Jane. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm working, but I'll try and make this really quick. Thank you for that really great presentation. I really learned a lot. And I'm just thinking out loud here. This year's theme at the European Sky Week was Digital Twin Earth. Is this something that we could also look at as a region? One question you already answered, that we really need a lot of ground data as opposed to our satellite data, if I got that right, because the patterns and performance we're seeing in our models were a bit off. So could this be something that we could look at as a region, which also falls, which is probably related to Anneline's comment on how we can use the research and the findings so far to influence policy? Could this be something, because data is available, and as you mentioned, it's analyzing and processing this data that is the problem. But if we look at how the great presentations we've had today on the progress we're making in terms of cyber infrastructure in the region, could this be something that we can work towards and have great impact, especially at a lower level in communities in addressing agriculture, for example? I hope that makes sense.
Well, not entirely, but I'm assuming you are talking about the use of basically satellite data to try and address some of the research questions. If you're looking at well, different application areas, the water sector, flooding, stream flows, agriculture, is that how I'm? Okay, so I'll just try to answer it with that understanding. I saw you are trying to unmute yourself.
Yes, you're right. Towards a digital Earth twin, looking at a cyber infrastructure level and also taking the work that you're doing. Like I said, I'm just thinking out loud. I just wanted to get to you.
Yes, we can, because I mean, in the first instance, the cyber infrastructure tries to deal with questions that are on the ground. We worked with the Met services because we know that they have a mandate to provide weather and climate information. So with the information that we are generating, in the end, we want those that are forecasting, that have the responsibility to issue warnings to the public to be able to use this information that can then be communicated in different ways. So some Met services have, let's say, weather apps that they will be able to communicate this information with. So in terms of reaching the ground, you are going to find that as far as the area that I've spoken to, you will find that the Met services are the ones that you will need to work with, because I know in South Africa, if anybody else, no one else has permission to issue warnings. And as we are issuing warnings, we are trying to reach different sectors. The agriculture sector, we want to work with the insurance industry. We want to work with agriculture, and we're actually getting into the space where we try to get people that work in these different application areas to come and work and be specialists within the Met services, so that we can have meteorologists speaking this language that translates to the impact on the ground. We know we still have issues. For example, I mean, they were talking about the devices, the smartphones, and people not having access to smartphones. So there's still more that needs to be done for us to be able to reach everybody, on the ground, people in the villages. I hope that answers you.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mary Jane. I think we will stop there. We'll stop there with the comments and questions. Thanks a lot for the update, and please do share the presentation so that we can share with the organizers to post all presentations by the end of the conference tomorrow. But again, on behalf of all the participants, thank you, and I will give the round of applause. Thank you, congratulations, and well done again. Keep up the good work. Maybe one more last comment before you go. When is the project ending, or is it ended? That's something I was not clear on.
Yeah, so CR4D, we've got up until the end of December.
December of this year?
Yes, of this year.
Okay, no, great. Yeah, so that's one thing that we just need to note, that the project is still on and it will only end in December. So I would suggest then, since the project is ending in December, that we already start preparing the report, which we'll submit to the ministers' meeting in June next year. So that we also have time to translate the report in the different SADC languages. So we'll just need to do a report that we share with the ministers. Yeah, but thanks again for the update and the presentation. Thank you. Thanks, Mary Jane. I will now call upon, I know our program says I am the next presenter, but in order to just reorganize our program so that we conclude in a systematic manner, I will therefore ask Dr. Tsiamo to come before me to do the presentation on the establishment of Botswana NREN, so that when I take the floor, I also take the floor to do the roadmap and action plan and move towards concluding of the meeting so that it's more systematic in the way we organize the next presentations. So I'll ask Dr. Tsiamo to please take the floor and please do share with us the exciting news, and it's really exciting news in terms of the developments that are happening in Botswana in establishing the new NREN. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Tsiamo. Welcome. Maybe because Dr. Tsiamo did share his bio, I think it will only be fair that I do also present his bio because he did share it. So we all know Dr. Tsiamo very, very well. We all started this journey with him some couple of years back, and Botswana has been really the chair for directing us in reaching our goals of where we are. So Dr. Tsiamo is based at the University of Botswana in the Department of Computer Science, the Faculty of Science, where he's a lecturer and heads the High Performance Computing and Data Science Research Cluster and the University Industry Government Co-Creation Platform. He has his PhD in computer science, both from the School of Mathematics and Computer School and Engineering and City of University of London, UK. So I'll stop there because it's a very, very rich, rich bio. We all know him very well and the great work that he's really doing and championing in the region on behalf of, and he's been chairing this initiative for quite some time, on behalf of Botswana. And hence, when Botswana was the chair of SADC, we managed to get the framework approved under the leadership of Botswana. So, Dr. Tsiamo, please do take the floor, and we look forward to hearing about the developments in Botswana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annelien. I have to taper down your keenness because, in fact, we are coming here to probably do more consulting. I did say before that Botswana are known for consulting to consult, but nonetheless, it is good news that we at least are moving in the direction of looking to develop the Botswana NREN. I've actually came out of another conference where we were invited to come and engage on the global open science cloud. I think the debate is also being held internationally regarding developing these platforms at an international level, at a regional level, at a continental level, and really at a national level, so that our scientists can plug into the science enterprise globally. So really, we wanted to come today. When I say we, it's myself and a number of colleagues who've been inducted by our ministry to really start leading the development, or at least moving towards the development of the Botswana NREN, something that we've always in the Cyber Infrastructure Forum talked about. So really, I'm here with them as part of that engaging platform. I thought maybe I'll just contextualize a little bit to say that we are all doing this because in the end of the day, nation states want to prosper, want to attain their sustainable development goals. Africa itself has set a very, very grand vision of the Africa we want through Agenda 2063 that provides really a platform and a master plan for transforming Africa to be this global powerhouse. So really that vision transcends through the region, as we do have at the SADC regional level, all the documents that we know about. And also at the national level, all the countries do have vision documents, all talking to sustainable development goals and how we want to attain them. And not only attain them, but obviously consider attaining them through the prism of science. So this is really important. And in terms of the science and the necessary platforms, there's also very good work that has been done to develop these platforms to enable African scientists to be really at the forefront of science, data-intensive science that is, and obviously address the African challenges. And there's some very good work that has been talked about regarding developing the federated network of computational facilities, the facilities that Dr. Sithole has been providing updates on. So there's big vision to really federate these facilities throughout the continent. Very, very important point there on the second point, there's need for training. With the infrastructure and no training, we're not really there. So there's a provision to develop these data science and AI institutes. And also the third point there, we need to make sure that we use this infrastructure to really drive priority programs. In the other session that I just attended at the Fair Data Conversion Symposium, they were talking about global challenges, things like SDG modeling, things like weather and climate. So I thought this is actually very critical, because also at an African level, we need to be doing these things, and we are doing these things. The last 2 points that are very critical, these platforms should really help us create networks like we are doing today for both education skills and also for open access. And we all know that at a regional level, this is what we've been talking about for the past 10 years, as Annelien and Dr. Sithole have mentioned, and we made progress. We made progress because whatever we discuss today is going to land with our own ministers who approved these things. The cyber infrastructure that everybody talks about requires the connectivity. So I'm very happy to hear that this session was focusing on connectivity as really the provider of the fabric where all these things hang. So really, it's always been the case that in Botswana, we didn't like the picture on the left-hand side. The picture shows Botswana as one of the few countries. This is an old picture, 2015. But I believe that Namibia now has got an NREN, Zimbabwe has got an NREN. So it really painted a picture as if we were an island, a lost island somewhere in the progressive Africa. But really, if you drill down, we've actually done a lot of good work over the years. Botswana is actually very connected. If you look at the picture on the left-hand side, we've got over 9,000 kilometers of fiber, crisscrossing the deserts of Botswana all the way to the Okavango, providing very, very good connectivity with some very, very latest technologies. The fiber that you see there is being provided over some advanced technologies, including dense wave multiplexing technologies, providing up to 10 gigabits per second on each. So really, on the connectivity side, a lot of good work has been done. What has been lacking is beyond the connectivity, is to make sure that we develop a dedicated NREN to take advantage of the underlying connectivity. And I want to share with you this, that some previous work has been done regarding our efforts. There has been some work done as far back as 2016 with the ministry then. Some sort of committee was instantiated. The committee done a very good work. They looked at a number of NREN models. They even developed some business case, and some sort of constitution was developed, and even an entity was registered. I believe there was also consultation with the UbuntuNet, whereupon some presentations were made, but there were some delays in the implementation, mainly due to maybe lack of coordination, or at least postponed coordination, and also some logistical matters. But really, that's some of the preliminary work that was done some time ago, and the impetus is there now, that maybe this is the right time to start resuscitating this very, very important project. And the project itself really talks to the government priorities. When His Excellency, the President, came in 2018, he actually pointed out those elements that you see there. The issue of skills, making sure that our education is relevant, the issue of creating opportunities for our youth, investment in ICT, even the issue of digital transformation was really talked about then. I'm not going to spend the rest of my time talking about the other ones. We all know about assets and finances and taxes. But the prism was already set that we do need to transform as Botswana in this new dispensation. There's also very, very good policies and national visions and priorities that really, in a way, talks to the infrastructure that NREN will provide. And they also talk about how that infrastructure, in a way, if available, could really help address some of our needs and objectives. I'm really giving you a list of documents there. We do have dedicated national policy on research, science, and technology and its implementation plan. And lately, everybody's talking about the SKA project. So we drafted a space science strategy that, amongst other things, talks of the necessary cyber infrastructure, including NRENs, really, to be able to see through that strategy and for Botswana to accrue value. We also find it desirable that the issue of data be addressed maybe through an open data policy, albeit that it hasn't been done, but there's been some discussions about the issue of data. And if this is done, if it's opened up, if the data is opened up, you all can imagine the potential in terms of open government through open data, open science through open data, and data for development, and also for the knowledge-based economy. On the other side of the coin, we've also got very good ICT policies in place, particularly the Maitlamo policy there that you see is the National ICT Policy, a very old policy. But there's a conversation that that policy hasn't really been implemented. So we need initiatives to really push it. We also have got a very detailed broadband strategy that really talks of increasing accessibility of broadband services throughout Botswana in the map that you saw, and improving its affordability and reliability. And on top of this infrastructure, there is also need for cybersecurity. So there is policies, a strategy regarding protecting our infrastructures. And of course, the issue of data is covered by the Data Protection Act in terms of using the data properly. There is also e-legislation, and there is also a regulatory body that provides communication regulatory function in Botswana. It regulates obviously the telecoms and the internet and broadcasting, and more importantly, does the licensing. I'm saying these things because these things are very, very critical, obviously, when engaging to develop NRENs. Most importantly, as I said with the diagram that I showed there before, we've got a dedicated government parastatal called Bofinet that is charged with providing the infrastructure countrywide, but also provides, it's a wholesale provider of national and international communication infrastructure of providing service to all the licensed telcos. So really, there is the making of some of the fundamental basics that we will need for developing our NREN. So really, the task for today, colleagues, I'm hoping Annelien puts me at the end so that we can work till very late. I know she's generous with her time when it comes to some of my presentations. We are coming here to consult. We don't have an NREN yet, and we are humble enough to say we want to learn from others and also to get feedback from others about some of these very, very important issues. Because the last thing we want is to develop something that hasn't been thought out properly. We also want to leverage experiences of those who've done it for quite a number of years now, so that we can move swiftly, but also move purposefully. But the good news is that Botswana is really very keen on the digital transformation agenda. And the NREN has come out as one of the big priorities. And obviously, how the NRENs can affect and transform RSTI is well known. And obviously, how NRENs can also drive the digital transformation agenda in the research and education space is also well known. So the government has seen it fit to constitute a team at the Ministry of Tertiary Education, Research, Science and Technology, of which we are part of, to really drive this rollout of the NREN. One of the things that we set out to do, this is nearly a month now, is to start developing an overarching strategy to guide the development of the NREN. Of course, we need an implementation plan. And we are starting engaging and consulting to really build a business case that will highlight, obviously, a number of focus areas as well, that will touch on things like governance, what we need to do with human capital, the issue of funding, the issue of infrastructure, and the issue of content and services. I think you colleagues talked about content a lot today. It's very, very critical. Africa, Southern African countries, SADC countries need also to think about generation of locally developed content. And we know that NRENs provide services over there for their community. So we are thinking about these things. We need the necessary partnerships and the necessary institutional policies so that our universities have what it takes, at least internally, to also position themselves for taking advantage of these NRENs when they come. So as part of this consultation, that's why we're here today. The SADC Cyber Infrastructure Expert Working Groups in Infrastructure, we believe provides a very good conduit. I know that I've got 15 minutes, but I'm hoping out beyond the engagement today, we can maybe engage further on a more detailed basis to make sure that we get to what we need to get going forward. But the key issue when it comes to NRENs is the model that we need to consider, especially given that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We really need to look at our domestic environment vis-a-vis also learning what other people have done. I'm aware that there are a number of models. We are aware that there are a number of models. One model approach is to really have institutions themselves creating this animal and leading it and running it. Presumably that requires a critical mass of the number of institutions and requires the necessary funding mechanism in place from institutions. We are also aware that there are some models where the government itself leads these initiatives. The government takes responsibility of leading this initiative of NRENs. But one would imagine that there is a hybrid model where government, in a way, facilitates setting up an NREN. This is something that we are looking at, facilitating with the necessary, obviously, provisions that the government can provide. And it does this in partnership, real partnership, with the education and research institutions, because I would imagine what we don't want is something that is developed and is a white elephant. It wasn't developed with the need and the drive from the members themselves. So we are leaning towards this model C, where we will introspect very, very closely to see our current setup in terms of strengths, and also to really make sure that there is an interplay between government and the institutions themselves. So really, we're coming here also to engage to see what has worked for who. With that in mind, we're looking at these next steps regarding this model, i.e. we have to really look closely and look at the situation on the ground and see how we can leverage that situation on the ground to really hit the ground running. One of the things that is proving to be a very, very good impetus is that there's a good move towards national digital transformation in Botswana and the envisaged outcomes. So one would imagine we will leverage this very, very well. And the government in that prism, in as much as it's also driving the overall digital transformation, can maybe facilitate funding the development and operationalization of the NREN, notwithstanding that we'll be looking for support elsewhere, also regarding how to fund the NRENs as it's been done elsewhere. And it's very critical, we think, in this model, for some funding to be sourced from participating institutions, albeit that in Botswana we've got a peculiar situation whereby all universities are funded by governments through disbursements. And in a way, we're just saying that within the expenditure of universities, it could be that they look at funding services that they are currently, by the way, sourcing themselves, including bandwidth that they are sourcing themselves from third parties. So really, we think that will provide the necessary commitment from institutions. But what will be critical also is to look at the governance model, a governance model that will maybe talk to some of the strengths that we have or leverage some of the strengths that we have. There are many, many approaches. We're very, very keen to hear how others have done it. But it's possible, given that there's a very big debate now going on in government about rationalizing, and instead of creating multiple entities, multiple organizations, maybe leveraging what is already there. Could it be that maybe a governance model that looks at institutionalizing and embedding an NREN into some already existing entity? Could it be a parastatal? Could it be some institution? These are some of the question marks that we're having in our mind, and there's some strong arguments for looking at that provision. It goes without saying that in this model, you cannot leave institutions behind. So there must be institutional champions. We all know very well, maybe even given by the meeting today, that you see people who are championing things. We need to be looking at these champions from all the stakeholders and looking to get them engaged very early on in this endeavor. And of course, we also need to look at development partners who also see research networks as essential tools in the RSTI. That table is not complete, but it captures some of our initial thinking that we are hoping to augment with some of the thoughts that colleagues may have here or here onwards when we discuss that closely. So with that model, you would imagine there will be interventions, commitments from governments. We need to pin those down. We also need to pin down the commitments from the institutions themselves. We've provided some listing there, is incomplete, but it goes without saying that whatever model we choose, if we choose this model, we'll be looking to take advantage of the infrastructure in place. We'll be looking to take advantage of the management in place. But of course, we need to develop expertise We need to leverage expertise of goodwilling friends and other NRENs and UbuntuNet. So really, we'll be looking to populate this model of ours to really look at what's on the ground moving forward. So that's another table that through consultation and benchmarking, we'll be looking to populate going forward. So really, this is what we came out to do today, to say this is what we need going forward. We're looking to engage local stakeholders. This meeting for SADC-CI came at a timely opportunity. That's why we came here running to say, if this is being the theme today, maybe we should be using this platform to engage SADC in, as well as we are engaging local stakeholders. It goes without saying that we know that UbuntuNet has over the years done good work with capacitating NRENs. It could be very, very useful. Our good friends are here from SANREN, from ZAMREN, from MORNET, all of which I know them very well. We've had some very good discussions over the years in Madagascar, in the US, we've been to Botswana many times. So we're looking towards you to continue helping us with some ideas on where we are going. We are aware that funding is a critical issue, especially for sustainability of these NRENs. We are aware that Africa Connect ship is sailing. Maybe you can hope to catch it. I don't know how fast we need to run, but that avenue for funding and others will prove in handy. So really, if you look at the last bullet, we are hoping going forward, we can maybe set up a proper engagement with more time, Annelien and colleagues, maybe through the SADC-CI infrastructure working group championed by ZAMREN and SANREN, and also maybe engaging also MORNET, given also their very, very good work that they had over the years. So we are looking. Let me get my charger very quickly. Okay, we are plugged in. So a number of things that we are needing to sound out and tease colleagues out on. The issue of the models, we thought a little bit about it. You saw the model that we are preferring. The issue of governance, we think is a critical one, given that it makes or breaks an entity. Notwithstanding that we talked about the possibility of looking at a number of options. Issues of regulatory framework, licensing and pricing, and also the business plans. How did the various NRENs look at their business plans to make, obviously, for a sustainable NREN? I think the issue of total cost of ownership, governments are very sensitive to costs. So I think the more transparent we are about the real cost of some of these things, the better. The more informed we are, the more we can inform them, so that when they make their judgments on investments going forward, they will be making judgments on something that is properly costed. So I think we will need assistance with that. And obviously the services that the NRENs typically provide, we're not talking about anything from basic services, like providing e-learning, all the way to advanced services, like data services. We think it's very, very important for us to engage and consult on some of these things. Also, their phased approach. How do you go about selecting and phasing some of these services out? So really, colleagues, that's what we came here for. I'm aware that we had 15 minutes, but we wanted to excite you about the possibility of helping us get started and maybe schedule a detailed engagement going forward and seeing how we can glean some input from colleagues. But before I complete, we are also looking to, now that Annelien, you talked about flagship projects, I think it's very, very critical to, in addition to the very wonderful project that Dr. Mary-Jane is talking about, to look at additional projects. I'm glad to say that the Botswana Geoscience Institute is very, very keen on a regional project in around geosciences and seismology. Botswana has developed a seismic network that is providing near real-time information about seismic activity in Botswana is connected to global networks. One would imagine that a regional platform around seismology could be in the offing. I'm looking here that some work was done 30 years ago to really look at the feasibility study for establishing a SADC seismographic network station. Not only that, also a SADC seismic data center. I thought that was very visionary. I'm talking to colleagues at the Botswana Geoscience Institute. They say this is something that will really be very helpful going forward. They are also engaged in a project called the Africa Array that is looking to train geoscientists And the seismic network node at the Okavango Research Institute, looking at the Okavango Delta, was actually done through this project. So it seems to me that the geoscience institutes in the region maybe can look at populating a template that we have for the CI, and looking to do what maybe the meteorologists are doing going forward. And from the Botswana side, this will be a very nice project that we can immediately attach to something like the NREN to say, look, here is something that can already be done. There's also a very good project coming up on the biodiversity. We've done a proposal for biodiversity repositories in Botswana with the Okavango Research Institute that we are involved in. And I think this is something that has also got a regional impetus. So Annelien, I know that you've given me 15 minutes, but that's the gist of what we have. We are hoping to engage with other NRENs here, with the SADC CI expert working group, to really start building the makings of an NREN. Because if we get this right, it will move very, very quickly, and we can join the nations in Southern Africa to provide the necessary connectivity cutting through Botswana, linking us to the other parts of Africa and the world. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Dr. Siamo. Thanks a lot for that great presentation. And I think it was more of an update, so we won't open up for questions because we are running out of time. But we've noted, especially the key issues you've raised in terms of governance model, but also the proposed projects that you have put forth. And we're happy that Botswana has done this, and we hope that Botswana will take the leadership in bringing the key players together so that we can develop the first step, which will be the concept framework for the projects. What's interesting for me is that you mentioned the issue of the governance models for the NRENs, how we learn from each other, which actually prompted me to say maybe we need some sort of just like a regional guideline on helping member states on setting up their or establishing their NRENs. Yes. So maybe something we can look at on how we just come up with some basic guidelines which member states can use as a guide in setting up their NRENs, and something that we will note as part of the way forward. We've also have a note from Dr. Stolle that there is the keynote in the main conference, which is starting at 4:30. We'll try to move as quickly as possible so that you don't also miss the keynote in the main hall that's going to be starting at 4:30, but also not compromising our work that we're supposed to do as this session to try to consolidate. So let me quickly then move to towards the last session of our program, where I will really just put together the recap of the governance structures, but also have already drafted an action plan and a roadmap. And I think the reason why we've put next meeting in 2021, that this was really an extraordinary meeting. We normally take 2 days for this meeting, but because of the situation that it's a virtual meeting, we could only allocate 1 day for this meeting. So we hope that early next year, possibly February or March, we will have a follow-up meeting where we'll look at our other follow-up items that we discussed at our meeting last year in 2019. So before I get to the summary and roadmap and actions, I'd just like to share this presentation from that was shared by my colleague, Dr. George Athieu, who is the head of our ICT desk. He could not be with us in this meeting, but he has given me the slides to share, just to give an update of the ICT infrastructure in the region where we are, so that it also gives us a perspective of where different member states are and the type of infrastructures that are. So he's done the slides but couldn't be here to present, and this is really the work that is leading in our ICT desk at the SADC Secretariat. I've just highlighted the key issues. I'm not going to read most of the points, but just highlighted the key issues that we need to note. That the SADC ICT sector is guided by the ICT chapter of the SADC Regional Infrastructure Development Master Plan, which we refer to as SADC Digital 2027. And it's really the blueprint for our ICT infrastructure development in the region, because ICT meteorological services is one of the key priority areas that we have under this master plan. And I hope as the Dr. Mary Jane and the project team move towards concluding the project on our climate and weather, that you do refer to the infrastructure master plan under the chapter for Met Services, because the Met Services has a dedicated chapter, and really see that how your project has contributed towards some of the priorities under the Met Services identified in the infrastructure master plan. You can see that in 2019, in terms of the data that we have, that our average internet user penetration at the regional level is at 22.3%. Whereas at the global level, we are at 53.6%. So you can see that we're doing very well in terms of mobile penetration, which grew to 71.1%, whereas the average at the global level is at 108%. The SADC household internet access is sitting at 27.8%. We can see it's still very low. And we need to increase more access to our household at the regional level, especially if we're talking about e-learning, going digital, and rolling out all of these digital platforms. In terms of our international connectivity, we can see that the region was the first to be connected via the submarine in 1879. So we can say that we are connected to the key infrastructure connectivities, and then all SADC member states and have cross-border digital links with their neighbors of at least 2 independent international internet links. So we can see that from an infrastructure perspective, we are progressing in terms of connectivity. In terms of the internet exchange points, we can see that they play a very important role, especially if we're talking about internet infrastructure ecosystems, especially that now we say ICT is the key enabler for our e-learning and digital platforms. In terms of SADC, I don't know why the screen is freezing. Okay, so we can see that there are currently the countries that have their internet exchange points are South Africa, Tanzania, Angola, DRC, Zimbabwe, and then we see Botswana, Lesotho, Madagascar, Malawi, Mauritius that have their internet exchange points, while others have more than one. We can also see that in responding to COVID-19, most of the member states adopted a zero-rate internet tariff for accessing digital platforms in combating the pandemic. And we could see from the country experiences that were shared here, we've made example of Mauritius and Mozambique, but also Zambia, South Africa, and many other countries, Namibia, also adopted the zero-rate approach in terms of responding to the pandemic and allowing especially e-learning platforms. From a 4IR and data protection project, so under the African Development Bank, they conducted a study on 4IR in Africa, but they did an in-depth study specifically focusing on SADC in terms of data protection. And it was found that we do have a data protection model law, which was published in 2012, in order for member states to use that model law to transposition at the national level. And this is really to facilitate the harmonization of data protection in the region in support of ICT ecosystems. We can see that through the study done by the African Development Bank, we saw that the SADC data protection model law is compatible with other model laws such as the EU Data Protection Directive and the Malibu Convention, which is at the AU level. And we see that that our model law needs modernization and alignment to the European General Data Protection Regulation. And we are going to review this in 2021 under the leadership of our ICT sector, as I said, Dr. George Athiu, who is the responsible coordinator there. And it was also found through the study that Mauritius and South Africa were identified as best practices or good practices in terms of data protection frameworks that may be used to guide other member states. But we also saw that the study urged the member states to rectify the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection as per the Malibu Convention. In terms of your computer incident response teams, which is your CERTs, we can see that the number only 6 countries have such CERTs, which is Botswana, Eswatini, Mauritius, South Africa, Tanzania, and Zambia, who have established and have operational national computer incident response teams, which is CERTs. Some countries are already in the process of setting up their CERTs, such as Malawi, Namibia, DRC, Lesotho, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Madagascar, Seychelles, etc., who are in the process of setting up their CERTs. And this is part of the work at the regional level that we need to support and support countries in. And then in terms of the slides here, we also highlighted the importance of NRENs that they can play and that they play an instrumental role in enhancing our internet performance. So I will share the presentation that was put together by who couldn't be with us, and he's responsible for our ICT sector. And I hope that gave you kind of the regional perspective in terms of our ICT infrastructure. I will then now move towards going towards the end of our actions, which I will look now at the actions and the roadmap and just recap on some of the outstanding issues that we agreed on last year during our 9th meeting. So just allow me to project some few slides, and then we should be moving towards the conclusion of this meeting. We don't want you to miss the keynotes that are taking place now in the main hall. So in terms of the actions, you'll remember that in Johannesburg last year, in 2019 in Birchwood, we reflected on this governance structure, which is in our proof framework. And you being guided by this governance structure in our proof framework, we agreed on these following working groups, and we agreed on a steering committee. So the steering committee, we said, is made up of Tanzania, Mozambique, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, and then we'll also look at the cross-cutting issues, which will be policy, communication, awareness, and advocacy. So the human development and capital working group is led by Namibia. It was nominated that Namibia will lead the group, but being supported by Lesotho and Zimbabwe. The research data working group will be led by Botswana. It was agreed that Botswana will lead it, and being supported by South Africa, Namibia, Mozambique, and Tanzania. The infrastructure working group to be led by South Africa, because already we recognize, the role they are playing in the rolling out of different infrastructure. And that group will be supported by Mozambique, Zambia, Lesotho, and Tanzania. And then the research, development, and innovation working group is to be led by Zimbabwe, supported by Tanzania, Botswana, Mozambique, Namibia, and Zambia. And the fact that the countries have been identified in the various working groups, it doesn't mean they cannot participate or contribute in the other working groups. We've just put small teams together to lead particular working groups on behalf of the region. So whatever work the working group is doing is on behalf of the rest of the region. And we said that the SC steering committee, SC stands for steering committee, will have the 7-member team, which is the representatives of the different working groups. And then we've put in an additional 3 members from the working groups. We say that these working groups will be in operational for 3 years on rotational basis. So after 3 years, we'll choose a new group that will lead different working groups so that we rotate amongst the member states in terms of coordinating the different working groups. We said that the working groups, together with the steering committee, will have to develop 3-year work plans of activities that need to be implemented. So, for example, the research data working group needs to come up with a work plan for the next 3 years as what they think should be done at the regional level that needs to be facilitated, and the same goes for the other working groups. So this is just to recap what we agreed on last year at our meeting, and that we need to resuscitate this work. We understand the challenges we had this year with COVID. Everything had to come to a standstill, but then we had to reorganize ourselves in how we deliver our work. So in terms of this meeting, I've tried to capture some of the key issues as per our discussion since this morning. As you know, traditionally, we have this as a 2-day meeting. The first day, we also get country reports from the different countries, but because it's a virtual meeting, we could not accommodate all 16 countries to give country reports. So hence, we only chose few countries to share experiences. But this doesn't mean that we're not supposed to submit our reports. So we will circulate the template, and we ask you to populate your template in terms of the country reports. We had agreed on a standard template that we presented last year, and everybody accepted it. So I will re-email that template and ask you to provide your reports by the end of January next year, because we're hoping to schedule another meeting before the end of March, just to pick up on some of the things we could not address during this 1-day meeting, because 1 day, as I said, is not enough. So we need to pick up on the other outstanding issues. So we recommend that we have another meeting. We reconvene as a SADC group only between February and March. We will communicate virtually. We also need to draft the terms of reference for the governance structures by the end of February 2021, and this will be done or coordinated by the Secretariat, which is myself, and circulated to the steering committee members. We will also consolidate the list of proposed projects, and I'm happy Botswana shared some projects, especially from the geoscience community. So we'll get more projects that needs to be shared so that we can then put together and see how we mobilize resources. You'll recall that last year we had a presentation from the colleagues from CHPC on how to run the student cluster competition. So the thinking is to have a regional student cluster competition that we want to coordinate at the regional level. And we need to take this concept document to the ministers so that they can endorse it. Because we didn't have a ministerial meeting this year, we were supposed to have one in June. Because of the pandemic, we had decided to postpone it to next year. So the next ministerial meeting will be in June 2021, hosted by Mozambique. So we want that this concept document should be concluded by March 2021. And this should be led by the working group responsible for human capital development. And just to go back, I think that is Namibia. So Namibia will be leading that group to develop the concept document for the proposed regional student cluster competition. Taking from the experiences of today, where we had the presentations from Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Mozambique on how they've responded to COVID in terms from an education perspective, providing e-learning platforms. I think we should continue with the peer learning and sharing of country experiences in responding to COVID through our cyber infrastructure platforms. So we'll continue to have maybe even webinars to continue sharing these experiences and bring other countries to share the experiences. So at our meeting that we plan for in March, we'll get another group of countries to share on their experiences. And I think we should kind of document what is happening in the region so that we can share this. We need to develop our work programs, as I indicated. So the different working groups need to develop their work programs, especially for the capacity building activities and the infrastructure rollout for 2021. We had a very exciting presentation from the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development and Data by Mr. Adinho. And it was a very eye-opening presentation that there are more opportunities for partnerships, for capacity building, for technical assistance, especially in responding to COVID. They spoke about the data hubs, the COVID data hubs, and the type of assistance they are providing. So already we saw they're working with Namibia already. Botswana will be working with them. They're already working with Zambia and other countries. So we want to then bring this and see how we can cement and take up the partnership with them. We also got the presentations from the 2 UNESCO chairs, South Africa through Professor Olivier, So we're going to bring them on board and see how we can tap into this UNESCO chair for e-learning or open and distance learning. And then also, again, we congratulated Namibia for being awarded the UNESCO chair for big data. So again, how do we discuss, how do we work together so that we leverage the opportunities offered by these chairs? I had mentioned in my opening remarks that this year marks our 10-year anniversary, that we've reached a 10-year milestone since we've started this work. So we want to plan for a 10-year regional CI conference in 2021. It could be towards mid-2021, we will decide. I think when we meet in March, we will put a working group together to start planning for this conference. And also really to how do we capture our successes and achievements that have been achieved by member states. We saw the great work being done by member states. Botswana just sharing the plans for their NRENs and all the exciting work that's happening in the region. But how do we document this and capture this so that we can then celebrate it during the conference? We also got some very great inputs from Dr. Masezana from Botswana, Audrey. She had connectivity problems, but also she had to rush to another meeting. So she did send us some inputs for the conference that it's a great idea, and we should also look at bringing academics, papers, students. But she has supported from Botswana, supported the fact that we need to have this 10-year celebration conference. So as you know, everything we do, we're not doing it for the sake of doing it, but we are doing it in terms of the directions we have been mandated by the ministers. So everything we do will be reporting to the ministers. As I indicated, this year we could not have our ministerial meeting because of the COVID, so we took a directive to postpone it to next year. So as you know, our current chair for SADC is Mozambique. So the next meeting will be hosted by Mozambique in June 2021. And all of these recommendations, the progress, we will have to report to the ministers' meeting. And we also need to agree on the date for our next meeting. So it will possibly be in February or March, and that will be communicated via email. So with those few words and my conclusion, I'd like to thank everybody for your patience, for sitting, especially it's not easy with these virtual meetings, sitting in one place and listening to the different presenters. But I think we had a very rich program, and I'm happy that we've achieved the objectives of today. And I'd like to also thank all the presenters for taking time to prepare the presentations and the discussions, the very enriching and fruitful discussions we had as a group. As a host, Konia, she's been in the background. She didn't say much, but would also like to thank Konia for being the host of this SADC session, and all the technical team, Verna, Kevin, Rudy. They were not part of us, but we'd also like to extend a thankful to all the technicians and the technical team for helping us, but also to thank the Department of Science and Technology, Department of Science and Innovation. We need to get used to the new name. And also the Center for High Performance Computing led by Dr. Stole, that, you know, it was a decision taken by the ministers in 2014 that the South African National Annual HPC Conference, we need to have the SADC meeting as a meeting as part of the conference, and that was endorsed by the ministers as far back as 2014. And we're happy that South Africa has been so generous throughout the years in ensuring that we continue having these SADC sessions during the national conference, and all the support they've given us through the 10 years in supporting the work of the region, and the continuous support they provide in the leadership in sharing and really sharing resources, sharing our technical resources, our financial resources, our infrastructure resources with each other as a region, because we need to help each other to achieve what we call regional integration as a bloc. So with those closing remarks, I'd like to say thank you to everybody. Thank to all the participants for attending. We will post all the presentations on the conference website as indicated by Konia, and we will make sure that you get copies of all the presentations. And again, thanks to all the presenters. We invite you all to join the keynote addresses which are currently taking place in the main hall. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Annelien. Thank you very much for coordinating.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Dr. Tsiamo. Thanks to all the panelists, all the speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.